The sky above Niera burned like fire. Ships screamed overhead. Buildings crumbled, while cries of the innocent echoed through the smoke. The Nyari, once a peaceful race of thinkers and dreamers, were now nothing more than prey. Their enemies, the Krav, had returned not to conquer, but to erase. With heavy steel boots and death machines, they wiped out cities with no warning, crushing generations of beauty and culture into ash. In the central chamber of the council dome, Elder Sina trembled. As the ground shook beneath her feet, statues toppled. The glass roof cracked. Alarms cried out. All escape paths were blocked. But deep inside that dome, a single technician, barely more than a boy, stood hunched over an ancient transmitter, something they hadn't used in over 100 years. His name was Elian, and his hands were shaking. "This won't work," he whispered. Senna turned to him. Her voice cracked, but her eyes were sharp. "Send it." "Ow. They told us Earth was gone. Silent for centuries. What if send it anyway?" So he did. With a trembling hand, he activated the deep space beacon. It was a slow machine, old and rusted. It took a full minute to warm. Then Elian spoke into the mic, voice trembling. "This is the Nyari homeworld. We are under attack. Our people are being wiped out. We are unarmed. We seek no war. If anyone hears this, please help us." He pressed the transmission key. The signal fired through the stars, coded in ancient language. Most would ignore it. Many wouldn't even recognize it. But far beyond known space, something did. Something heard. 3 weeks later, the Krav stood in total control. The sky was quiet again, but the air still smelled like smoke and blood. Only a few Nyari remained, hiding in caves and ruins, waiting to be found. The Krav searched for them slowly now, enjoying the hunt. They believed the war was over. No one had answered the SOS. No fleets had arrived. No warnings, no resistance, just silence. The Krav mocked the Nyari. "Your gods are dead. Your friends are dust. Even Earth has forgotten you." They were almost right. Almost it started with a shadow, high above the Nyari moon. A dark object appeared, silent, cold, and massive. No lights, no signals, no broadcasts, just presence. Krav radar couldn't track it. It didn't match any ship design they knew. But when it moved, entire sensor networks crashed. They called it the Black Tier. Then came more. 5, 10, 20. Ships all black, all unmarked. They slipped through space like ghosts, ignoring Krav channels. Krav commanders tried to contact them. "Identify yourselves or be fired upon." Yes. No answer. One brave Krav captain launched a warning shot. Single missile. It never reached the target. The black ship didn't even fire back. Instead, it released a low-pitched pulse, one single wave of force. The Krav ship split in half like paper. No explosion, just gone. Panic spread. "Who are they?" one Krav screamed. "What empire owns this fleet?" But deep in the command bridge of the lead ship, a soldier in black armor said just 4 words. Command received. "Ah!" "Operation begins now." On the ground, the Krav barely had time to react. Dropships fell from the sky, sharp triangular crafts that didn't roar when they landed. They punched into the earth, then opened like dark flowers. And from inside came the soldiers. Not men. Not machines. Something in between, covered in matte black armor, faces hidden behind curved helmets. These were not friendly rescuers. They didn't speak. They didn't stop. They didn't even look around. They just moved fast, perfect, terrifying. One carried weapons unknown to the Krav. Their rifles didn't fire bolts or plasma. They fired beams of compressed gravity that folded enemies inward. One hit and a Krav warrior vanished in a blink. Entire Krav units vanished within minutes. The black-armored soldiers didn't take prisoners. They didn't ask questions. They didn't hesitate. 1. Krav commander tried to surrender. He dropped his weapon and raised both arms, shouting in 3 languages. The nearest human soldier looked at him for 2 seconds, and then executed him without a word. Yahan, hiding beneath the old temple ruins, felt the shaking above him.
Yeah.
Believed it was Krav tanks again. But when he peeked from a cracked wall, he froze. Across the ruined square, 5 figures stood, black armor, no emblems. Glowing red eyes. One of them turned toward him. Yahan ducked fast. He held his breath. The soldier didn't shoot. Instead, he tossed something toward the opening. A small black cube. It landed with a soft beep, projected a hologram. Earth's symbol, the old one, the one no one had seen in centuries. A red earth behind a black shield. Then the words, "Hostile presence will be removed. Civilian safety. Secondary priority, do not interfere." Then the message ended. Yahan stared at the cube, stunned. The signal had been answered, but this was no rescue. These weren't guardians. They were a cleansing force. In orbit, the lead ship of the unknown fleet opened a secure channel, one only a few in the galaxy could understand. A human voice spoke, motionless. Designation, Black Shield Protocol. Activated after 248 years of silence. Cause, misuse of Earth origin technology by unauthorized species. Enforcement level, maximum. That signal was received by no one, except Earth itself. And even there, no reply came. Because Earth didn't need to speak. Not anymore. It had already sent its answer at the far edge of the system. The last Krav fleet tried to escape. 40 cruisers jumped to warp, but they never arrived. Space folded once, then tore, then folded again. And they were simply erased. Not a single piece of wreckage was found. Only silence. Back on the Nyari homeworld, Elder Senna stood again on the broken council stairs. Yahan helped her up. Together, they watched as black ships hovered silently over the city, unmoving, like dark gods watching their work. "What are they?" Yahan whispered. Senna didn't answer for a long time. Then she said, "We called for help, but we forgot what kind of world Earth was." "They saved us," Yahan said. "No," she whispered. "They avenged something. That's not the same thing." And as the black ships rose once more into the sky, the Nyari people stayed hidden, not because they were still afraid of the Krav, but because now they had seen something worse. Something made by Earth. Something built not to protect, but to punish. The air still smelled like fire. All across the Nyari homeworld, black ships hovered above the ruined cities, silent, motionless, like giants made of stone and shadow. They had not fired since landing. They didn't speak. They didn't demand surrender or make declarations. And yet, everyone knew they were in control now. The Krav, who had once laughed at the weakness of the Nyari, were now either dead or running. Their warriors scattered into the wild mountains, hiding in their own occupied zones. But the humans didn't chase them with anger. They didn't pursue with emotion. They moved like machines, fast, cold, exact, in the capital ruins. One of the last Krav commanders, General Voss, crouched in a fallen control tower. Around him, 3 soldiers waited in silence. One was bleeding, another was sobbing, shaking, repeating the same phrase over and over. "It's not possible. This can't be real. We beat the Nyari. We crushed them." Voss stared through broken glass as he watched black armored figures descend from a dropship. 12 of them. Their boots touched the ground without a sound. Each carried a long weapon, unlike anything the Krav had ever seen. They didn't raise them. They didn't need to, Voss whispered. "They're not soldiers. They're executioners." He knew retreat was the only option. But when his second-in-command tried to signal an extraction shuttle, her comlink gave nothing but static. No Krav ships were responding. No air support, no beacons. The skies were empty. "They're jamming everything," she said. "No," Voss said. "They're not jamming us. They've already taken everything." Across the city, black figures moved with perfect formation, like parts of one machine. They didn't run. They didn't stop to look around. When they found Krav, outposts, they didn't ask questions. The door would blast open. A silent flash, and then nothing.
Oh.
No sound, no screaming. Just 1 second of white light and then silence. One Krav. Squad managed to record what they thought was a victory ambushing a single human soldier near a collapsed bridge. They fired everything. Plasma rifles, grenades, fusion blades. The soldier didn't move. Then he raised one hand, and the entire squad disintegrated. No heat, no blast, just gone. Only dust remained, floating in the air like ash, far beneath the ruins. In a shelter with cracked walls and dim lights, a group of Nyari survivors gathered. Some were children, others wounded. They listened to every boom, every tremble, afraid the Krav were coming back. But Yahan stood at the entrance, staring toward the city's center. He had seen them, the humans. The ones in black, they don't. "Come to talk," he said softly. An elder behind him replied, "Then what do they come for?" Yahan didn't answer right away. His eyes were fixed on the sky, where a massive shadow began to rise from behind the mountains. A ship, not a dropship, not a fighter. Something larger. It wasn't just a warship, it was a judgment engine. The humans had brought more than soldiers. They had brought something meant to erase history. In the Krav outer colony on the moon Lorcath, a high command bunker received a silent ping. One of the data analysts checked the signal. "It's from Earth," she whispered. The others laughed. "Impossible. Earth is dead." But the signal repeated. It was ancient code binary wrapped in language from a dead era. The analyst translated it aloud. "You violated Black Protocol. Earth remembers. Earth responds." Suddenly all of their defense systems shut down. Turrets turned off. Shields dropped. Then their internal doors sealed tight. And in the last second, before the lights failed, the screen displayed 2 words in red. "No mercy." Then the bunker exploded. On the Nyari homeworld, the Black Shield soldiers moved into Phase 2, no longer just executing Krav. They now turned to the machines the Krav left behind. Tanks, scanners, energy walls, storage units. All of it was marked with red tags, then incinerated. No trace left. A Nyari technician named Raleigh approached one of the soldiers. "I can help," she said. "We've mapped where the Krav hid their weapons." The soldier didn't speak. He simply nodded once. That was it. She followed the unit through broken tunnels, guiding them to an old Krav bunker. As they moved, she asked, "Do you have names? Ranks? Orders?" The soldier stopped for 1 second. Then, in a deep, mechanical voice, he said, "We are not names. We're protocol." And then they continued. In orbit, aboard the flagship of the Deathworlder fleet, a single message was transmitted in all directions, but in code only Earth's line systems could understand. It read, "Phase 1 complete. No resistance, Krav. Forces are scattered. Civilian presence tolerated. Begin full sweep. Do not leave traces. Do not respond to signals. This is not a rescue. This is a reckoning." The voice sending it belonged to a commander known only as Unit 47. No name, no face, no history, because Earth had stopped sending people long ago now. It sent machines with memories. On the mountain above the city, Elder Senna stood in the cold. Watching lights dance across the sky, flashes of black beams, bright fire, and sudden silence. She whispered, more to herself than anyone else. "This is what comes when you wake a sleeping death world." Yahan stepped beside her. "We asked for salvation." Senna nodded. "We were given extinction, just not for us." They stood. They're quietly watching as black ships moved through the clouds without a sound, and far above them, orbiting in shadows, Earth's deadliest soldiers prepared for the next system, because Earth had heard the cry. But what it sent was not peace. What it sent was final. The Krav survivors hid like insects in their own conquered territory, crawling into tunnels and broken buildings, searching for places the humans would miss, but nothing was missed. No shadow was safe. No corner was forgotten. The soldiers from Earth did not rest, did not speak, and did not stop. They hunted with purpose, with precision, with terrifying silence. They were not like the Krav, who screamed and roared in battle. They didn't charge. They didn't need courage or anger. They moved as one black shadows gliding through smoke and ruins. Every motion was exact, every action cold. To the terrified Krav, who glimpsed them through cracked walls or broken ceilings, they looked less like soldiers and more like executioners sent from a world that had died and learned how to kill. And in truth, that was not far from the truth. Unit 47 led the squad through the remains of the old Krav barracks. Sensors showed 20 life forms inside, heavily armed, all panicking. They had barricaded themselves with force walls and automated guns. Any normal army would have hesitated, planned a siege, tried negotiation, but Unit 47 was not normal. He moved a single finger. His squad raised their rifles. All targets were marked. In less than 3 seconds, one more gesture. 20 red flashes blinked through the walls. Not a single blast missed. When the team entered, the Krav were gun-only ash and burned armor remained. There were no screams. There was no resistance. It's just one memory chip, still flickering in a dead console. Unit 47 took it. Not because he needed it, but because Earth required a record of its work. Far above the humans' flagship, the Vindicator, Eclipse hovered in silent orbit. It was shaped like a dagger carved from stone. It had no windows, no insignias. It didn't shine or reflect, simply existed. Inside, thousands of soldiers stood still in black pods, waiting, not sleeping, not dreaming. Waiting for activation, a single voice, artificial and cold, spoke to the ship. Protocol Phase 2. Extinguish all Krov-aligned infrastructure. Confirm remaining systems. Verify no tech theft. One of the officers, still human by blood, asked softly, "What of the civilians?" The voice replied, "Secondary concern. Preserve only if convenient. The mission is not peace, it is closure." On the ground, Nyari survivors began emerging from hiding. They were careful, slow, watching, wondering if they could thank these strange black-armored saviors. But the soldiers never spoke to them, never looked at them. They passed by like ghosts erasing Krav bunkers, slicing through weapon caches, uploading every piece of tech the Krav had touched and then reducing it all to nothing. A child named Lyra, no more than 10 years old, tried to offer one of them a small wooden flower, a symbol of the Nyari people's gratitude. The soldier knelt, not to take it, but to scan the flower. Seeing it held no Earth technology, the soldier rose without a word and walked away. Leaving Lyra standing alone, she looked at her mother and whispered, "Are they alive?" Her mother didn't answer, because no one really knew. Deep in the ruins of the Krav's planetary command station, 2 senior generals sent a final message to their remaining fleets across nearby star systems. "Retreat. Do not engage the humans. We cannot win. They are not like us. They are not like anyone." But the message never reached the other systems. The humans had already cut off every channel, silenced every wormhole, blocked every route, because Earth didn't want to fight. Earth wanted silence in the capital. Elion continued to observe them. He followed them at a distance, mapping their routes. He had no orders, no weapon, only questions. And when he finally worked up the courage to speak to one, it was only because he noticed something strange. Every human soldier touched their helmet before entering combat briefly. Just for a second, he approached one during a pause between missions. "Why do you do that?" he asked. The soldier turned to him. The mask was smooth, featureless. Then a voice came from inside, flat but unmistakably human. "Remember, we were once human." And then he walked away. Elion felt a chill. In his chest, these were not machines, but they were no longer men. On the edge of the continent, the Krav's last major base prepared for war. They believed the humans would come by, land or air. They didn't. The sky cracked open in silence, and from a shadow that hadn't been there, a moment before, came a weapon never seen in this galaxy. A single spear of black light fell from the clouds, split into 10,000 threads, and in 10 seconds, the entire base was gone. No explosion, no debris, no noise, just absence. Where it had once stood, now there was only glass. The Nyari later called that place the Mirror Field. Nothing would grow there again. In the Galactic Council chambers far away, diplomats watched scattered footage from panicked Krav transmissions. Shaky images of black ships, silent weapons, soldiers who never spoke. Worlds vanishing. One counselor whispered, "Earth has returned." Another said, "No, that is not Earth. That is what Earth became when it was forgotten." And the third, older than all, said nothing. He simply wrote 6 words into the record. "Never awaken the soldiers of Earth." Night fell across the Nyari homeworld. But the stars were no longer beautiful. They were watchers, witnesses, and somewhere beyond them, Ishmore craft systems blinked red as Earth's message continued its journey through space. A signal not of hope, not of diplomacy, but of consequence. It had been days since the black ships arrived. The skies were still stained from fires. The ground still shaking from silent weapons that left no noise but removed entire buildings from existence. The Nyari survivors began moving cautiously above ground, but no one truly felt safe. Not because of the Krav, they were gone now, scattered and broken, but because of the humans who walked among the ashes. They did not speak.
Ow.
They did not explain. They simply kept destroying. Even after the war was won, they moved like wolves, clearing the bones. Elion sat on the edge of the temple bridge, watching the soldiers of Earth carry out their work. The Krav were defeated. Everyone could see that. There were no more battles, no more resistance. And yet the soldiers continued to move through the cities like they were still at war. One of them passed bio-black armor coated in dust. Rifle. Humming with unseen energy, Elion called out, "It's over. The Krav are gone. You saved us." The soldier didn't stop, didn't even turn. He vanished into the ruins ahead like a shadow returning home. Elion looked down at the cracked symbol. Carved into the stone beneath his feet, the ancient Nyari word for peace. It meant nothing now, because Earth hadn't come to bring peace. They had come to erase a mistake. On the other side of the world, in the remains of Krav Fortress 12, one final cell of Krav engineers huddled in fear. They weren't soldiers, had no weapons. All they had were datapads and old schematics designs they'd stolen decades ago from a crashed Earth satellite. They had reverse-engineered a guidance system. They thought they were clever. Now they were dead. The building didn't explode. It simply disappeared. 1 second it was there. The next it wasn't. The only thing left behind was a single phrase. Burned into the ground, you touched what was not yours. No message. No explanation. Just finality. In orbit, Commander Sarah of the Vindicator Eclipse stood before the main interface. Reviewing the list of remaining targets, civilian cities marked green, former Krav bases marked red, industrial ruins marked black, she moved one finger. All black zones scheduled for total cleansing. An AI voice spoke behind her. "Commander, the Krav are finished." "What is your directive now?" Sarah's voice was emotionless. "Eliminate the legacy. Wipe their history. They cannot rebuild what they stole if there's nothing left." And the Nyari. She looked out the window at the blue-green world below. They are not the target. But if they interfere, they will not be spared. The AI was silent for 3 seconds. Protocol confirmed. A council of Nyari elders gathered in the mountain caves. Among them was Elder Senna, her face lined with dust and fear. She spoke softly. "They do not act like soldiers. They act like machines carrying out a curse." Raleigh, the young engineer, shook her head. "But they saved us. They could have let the Krav finish us." "No," Senna whispered. "They did not save us. We were just not in their way." One elder stood and asked, "What happens when we become the next problem?" The chamber fell silent in the burned-out shell of a Krav factory. Earth's soldiers gathered relic shards of stolen code, corrupted devices, melted chips. Anything linked to Earth was collected and sealed into black cubes. Then, without ceremony, the entire facility was vaporized. One soldier watched until the flames were gone. Then, from a pocket, he pulled a thin metal tag worn and faded. A name was engraved on it. A human name. He didn't speak, didn't mourn. He tucked it away and returned to the mission, because Black Shield soldiers didn't come home. Had no homes, only tasks. Back in the Nyari capital, a small crowd gathered as a massive Earth transport ship landed outside the cratered city gates. It wasn't a warship. It didn't carry weapons. Instead, it deployed Black Machine's four-legged units that walked through rubble, scanning and marking sites. One Nyari teacher named Ali approached, hopeful. "Is this aid? Are they here to rebuild?" No one answered. Instead, the machines moved into the broken library of knowledge. Without pause, they began melting shelves, disassembling computers, and reducing data archives to dust. Allies screamed, "Why? That was our history." But the machines ignored him. The soldiers nearby simply watched. And when Ali shouted at them, one finally turned and said, "Krav, encryption was found here. We erased contamination. It was only language," Ali cried. Only words. But the soldier had already turned away, because to the children of Earth, language was as deadly as weapons if it carried the wrong code. The Nyari began to understand. This wasn't a rescue, it was a quarantine. The Krav had stolen Earth's tech, but the tech had spread. Ideas, circuits, programs, and tools passed from hand to hand, race to race. Now Earth had returned to burn every piece of it out, not just the users, but everything it had touched. And if the Nyari happened to be in, the way they would fall too. In the black corridors of the Vindicator Eclipse, Commander Sarah watched the purge unfold from high orbit. Dozens of worlds were already cleared. More would follow. She opened an old message one, encrypted with her own genetic code. Its voice played. Male, deep, calm. To those who wear the shield. You were born not to lead or to live, but to end. If you are hearing this, it means Earth has been remembered. The galaxy must be reminded what forgetting us costs. The recording ended, and Sarah gave the next command. Begin final sweep. In the cities of the Nyari, the people lit candles. For the dead not, for the Krav, but for the memories that were being erased. Ancient monuments turned to ash. Artworks vanished. Music archives destroyed. The humans had not come to celebrate victory. They'd come to sanitize it. And when a child asked, "What happens when there's nothing left to burn?" an elder replied, "They'll leave, but not because we're safe, because we're forgotten again, and maybe that would be the only way to survive." The stars above the Nyari homeworld were clear again. The smoke had lifted. The fires were out. No Krav ships remained in orbit, no raiders in the shadows, no patrols on the ground. To any outsider, it looked like peace had returned. But the silence wasn't comforting. It was heavy, cold, the kind of silence left behind after something terrible had finished its work and moved on, and the black ships were still here. The Earth fleet hadn't left. It lingered like a knife hovering just above the skin still. Sharp, ready to strike again. Their machines still crawled through the ruins, scanning, deleting, vaporizing. Their soldiers still marched through the streets, not speaking to anyone, not stopping for anything. The Nyari watched and waited, hoping for something, some sign that it was over, some sign that the worst had passed. But they were wrong. The worst hadn't even begun, because the humans hadn't come to save them. They had come to erase something. Elion walked through the hollowed remains of the archive tower. It had once held thousands of years of Nyari culture, ideas, and dreams. Now it was gone, burned, dismantled. Nothing but a few shattered walls and melted metal. The only thing untouched was a simple stone in the center, marked with the old Nyari phrase, "Truth survives." But even that was cracking now. He found Raleigh kneeling near a burned console, trying to recover fragments of data from a ruined core. "I told them," she said, voice flat. "There was no Krav tech here, no encryption, no stolen code. And they didn't care." She held up a black cube. "They marked it. Red protocol. That means final deletion." Elion looked up at the black soldiers standing nearby. They weren't watching him, but they didn't have to. Every time he moved, they shifted slightly like they could sense intent, danger, curiosity. It didn't matter what side you were on. If you were near their target, you were already part of the threat. They weren't sent to help us, Leon said quietly. Raleigh looked at him, her eyes tired. No, she said. They were sent to clean up a mess. In orbit, inside the core of the Vindicator Eclipse, Commander Sarah stood before the memory wall. A long stretch of black metal, smooth and glowing faintly with etched names. It ran down the main hull of the ship from end to end. No medals, no pictures, just names. Every name belonged to a world where Earth technology had been stolen. Every name ended in silence. She placed a gloved hand on the newest name. Krav Primet was already cold. A voice behind her, robotic and familiar, spoke. Civilian confusion is increasing. They do not understand the mission. They were never meant to, Sarah replied. They weren't supposed to survive at all. Shall we correct that? No, not unless they interfere. She turned away from the wall and looked out toward the stars. Their lives don't matter. Their legacy does. If it carries Earth code, it must burn. That is the mission. That is why we woke up. In a hidden cave deep beneath the southern cliffs, the last surviving Krav scientist recorded a final message. His name was Velik. His hands shook as he activated the old broadcast terminal. One of the few left untouched by Earth's jammers. To any race that hears this, he said, do not answer the humans. Do not respond to their signals. Do not repeat our mistake. We thought they were gone. We thought they had forgotten. But Earth remembers. And Earth does not forgive. Before he could finish, he heard footsteps behind. Himlight, precise, silent. He turned just as a black-armored figure entered the cave. He didn't scream. He didn't run. He simply bowed his head. The last Krav died without a sound. The message never left the cave. The Nyari elders met in secret what? Few of them were left. Elder Sina stood before the group, her voice calm, but her eyes cold. We must face the truth. We are not survivors. We are witnesses. We called out for help. What we summoned was not a rescue fleet. It was a curse. One of the younger elders argued, but they stopped the Krav. They saved us. Senna raised her hand. They did not stop the Krav for us. They stopped the Krav for themselves. A long silence followed. Then she said the words no one wanted to hear. We were not saved. We were spared. Lyra, the young Nyari girl, sat on a hilltop, watching the black ships drift silently above. One of them moved slowly across the sky like a shadow cast by something no sun could create. She clutched a small clay figure in her hand, gift from her father now gone. A soldier appeared behind her. She didn't hear him arrive. He made no sound, but she turned anyway, sensing his presence. His armor reflected no light. His face was hidden behind a dark visor. He looked down at her and said nothing. She stood slowly and held up the clay figure. This is mine, she said softly. Please don't burn it. The soldier didn't move. After a long pause, he reached out and placed a tiny metal chip on the ground beside her. Then he turned and walked away. When she picked up the chip, a single image flickered across its surface. A burned earth, a rising flag, and 3 words beneath it. You were warned. In the final hours of the purge, the last of the Kravs. Stolen satellites were destroyed. The planet's orbit cleared. The mission logs were sealed. The human fleet began slow withdrawal procedures. Elyon watched from the highest tower, surrounded by ash and wind. He saw the ships rising, fading into the sky, carrying silence with them. He whispered, "Is it over?" Behind him, a human voice answered. For now, he turned startled. But there was no one there. Only a data slate, blinking with a message. From the Black Shield, violation of Earth protocols will result in extermination. You were spared because you did not resist. Do not become the next memory. The message ended. Elyon closed his eyes. He finally understood Earth had not come as a friend. Earth had not come as a savior. It had come as a warning. And for now, the warning had passed. But one day, it would return. Above the scarred surface of the Nyari world, last of Earth's fleet, hung like a black crown in the sky, silent, watching, waiting. The fires had died down, the cities were quiet, Krav were extinct, and the soldiers of Earth had completed their mission, but no one below felt relief. They had seen something that could not be forgotten. Not in their lifetimes. Not in any lifetime. It wasn't just the technology or the armor or the weapons. It was the cold, ancient wrath of a world that had once been abandoned and had rebuilt itself for vengeance, because Earth hadn't just survived, it had become something worse, something the galaxy should have left in peace. Elder Senna walked through the remains of the outer district with Raleigh and Elian beside her. The air was thick with dust, but no longer from war. Now it was from machines' massive cleansing drones that rolled over the ruins, turning rubble into sterilized white ash. They weren't fixing anything. They were erasing. Raleigh whispered, "They're not rebuilding, not helping. Just deleting everything the Krav touched, including parts of our own world." Elian nodded. "We were too close. We shared too much. And now they see us as infected." Senna stopped walking. She stared at one of the drones as it passed by, an ancient Nyari sculpture, centuries old, sacred to their people. The drone paused, scanned, and burned it to nothing. Just like that. History gone. That, Sina said, is what happens when you wake a sleeping death world. In orbit, the Vindicator Eclipse had begun its final sequence. Memory lockdown. A command sent from Earth itself. Decrypted only by the ship's AI and the highest Black Shield operatives. The voice of the protocol echoed through the command bridge. No trace shall remain. Mission parameters complete. Begin silent withdrawal. Future contact prohibited. Commander Sarah stared at the black screen, where a single word pulsed red. Forget. She. They don't get to remember us. And the Nyari, they'll remember, Sarah said. But no one will believe them. Elsewhere on the surface, young Lyra wandered into the ruins of the learning hall, once the place where children laughed and studied. Now it was empty. Black residue covered the walls where data panels had once shown Nyari art and philosophy. She saw something in the dust, a piece of an old star map. She picked it up. But before she could study it, a black drone hovered overhead and aimed its scanner. The map glowed red, contaminated. Lyra clutched it to her chest. "No," she said. "It's just a drawing. It's not from Earth." The drone paused. A red beam flickered over her face. Then, without warning, the map disintegrated in her hands. She watched the ashes fall, heartbreaking. "They're erasing who we are," she whispered. And no one could stop them. Elian stood atop the North Tower, staring up at the sky. The fleet had begun its retreat. One by one, the black ships faded into orbit, then vanished entirely as their warp drives folded space around them. But not all. One vessel remained larger than the rest, not moving, not silent. Broadcasting, he climbed higher until he reached an old receiver tower. Dusty, broken, but still connected to what remained of the Nyari grid. The human transmission came through, short and direct, mission complete. System sanitized, technology locked down and forced. Further contamination will trigger extinction-level response. He leaned close to the console and whispered, "Why do this? Why burn everything? Why spare no one?" No one answered. But then, the signal changed. A voice came through. Not robotic, not cold human. "You called for help. You awoke us. You opened the tomb. Now, you live with the curse." The message ended, and the ship vanished. In the deep archive caves, what little remained. Elder Sina gathered what survivors she could. They had saved scraps, fragments, pieces of what the Nyari had once been. A song recorded in crystal. Image. A child's poem etched. Into stone, they buried it all beneath the ground, not for safety, but for secrecy, so that Earth's soldiers would not find it, because the Nyari had learned the truth. Salvation was a lie. The humans hadn't returned as liberators. They had returned as keepers of a grave, and any who touched their dead world's remains would be buried beside them. In the Galactic Council, weeks later, the news arrived in bits and pieces. Krav worlds burned, colonies gone, no broadcasts, just silence. A few broken messages described shadow fleets, death soldiers, cities turning to glass, and one name kept appearing: Earth. But the maps showed no such planet. The archives listed it as lost. And yet, the fear was real, one ambassador whispered. What kind of world answers an old signal with annihilation? An older delegate from a forgotten system answered with shaking hands, the kind that remembers being forgotten. Back on the Nyari homeworld, the sky was blue again. Flowers grew where ashes had fallen. Children played again, but they didn't laugh like they once did. They looked up, often at the empty sky, and remembered the day the stars went black. Because now they knew what lived in the silence, between galaxies, and they knew the truth. Earth had not died. It had become something no one should ever wake again. Deep in the starless void, far beyond the charts used by traders, diplomats, and explorers, lay a silent world, a planet no one visited. No beacon marked, no signal broadcast. It was black on every map. Forgotten, buried by history. But it wasn't. Dead it was Earth. And while the galaxy evolved and spread and made war after war, Earth remembered everything. Every colony it had lost. Every ship that never came home. Every piece of stolen technology that had fallen into alien hands. The other species had moved on, but Earth had changed. It had built something ancient, something patient. A fleet, not an empire, but a warning wrapped in steel. And now, after centuries of silence, that warning had spoken. In the ruins of the Nyari capital, the air was strangely quiet. Not because the humans had left, but because nothing had returned to fill the silence. No rebuilding, no traffic, no hope. People whispered now. Loud voices felt dangerous, like they might attract attention even after the fleet was gone. Yahan walked through the eastern quarter, where statues once stood. Only their bases remained now, scorched and stripped by the cleansing drones. Beside him, Lyra held tightly to a small stone she'd found, a shard of a monument, shaped like a leaf. One of the last pieces of her culture they didn't leave. Anything behind? She said. No, Yahan replied. But they took something. Our history? He looked up at the sky. More than that. It took the idea that we were ever alone out here. In a sealed underground bunker in council space, leaders from 9 species met behind encrypted walls. Holograms flickered. Data spun through the air fragments from the Nyari world. Intercepted before Earth's silent shields came online. What they saw chilled them. Soldiers with no faces. Weapons that left no trace. Entire cities turned to ash with no radiation, no fire, just absence. A Draenari warlord stood up, shouting, "This is not possible. Earth was destroyed. We know this." A silent ambassador from the Tharn pulled up. An ancient record, a pre-collapse Earth broadcast, a warning, ignored. Do not take what we have made. Do not steal from the grave of a death world. We built for survival. And we never forget. The warlord laughed. They are gone. Ghosts. But the Tharn said one thing before walking out of the room. Ghosts don't destroy fleets. Commander Sarah stood on the deck of the Vindicator Eclipse, drifting through a dead system now labeled cleansed. A small world circled a cold sun, once a Krav research colony. Now just dust. She reviewed the files one last time before deletion. Rogue signal confirmed, her AI said. A single survivor from the Nyari planet sent a message to a council. Probe. Sarah read the message. They came not to fight, not to free. They came to remind us. Earth is still watching. The AI asked, "Do we intervene?" She paused, then whispered, "No. Let them tell the story. Let the galaxy wonder. Let them fear the silence again." At the edge of known space, a scavenger crew discovered a broken satellite. Ancient, dead, but strangely active. It contained only a single log, still transmitting through encrypted pulses. The crew cracked it and played the file. A voice, old and human, rasped through static. We were left behind, and so we watched, and built, and changed. We are not the same Earth that once sent diplomats and explorers. We are what happens after the stars forget you. We are not lost. We are awake. Then the satellite exploded. Not violently, cleanly. No trace left. Back on the Nyari world. Lyra planted the stone she'd kept from the ruins. She carved a single symbol into the dirt beneath it, a spiral, the old sign of memory beside her elder. Sina watched in silence. You know what they are now? Sina said. Lyra nodded. They're not here to kill. They're here to erase, because the galaxy forgot what Earth was. Lyra looked up, eyes sharp. But Earth didn't. In a forgotten hangar beneath Earth's surface, more soldiers waited. They stood inside. Black pods, eyes closed, hands ready, weapons already fused into their armor. Their minds were linked not by command, but by oaths, and somewhere in the shadows of that planet, a voice recorded in ancient stone repeated, "When they steal from us, we rise. When they forget us, we remember. When they come to conquer, we do not resist, we end." And above that hangar, far in the atmosphere, another fleet began to move. Because another signal had been detected, another whisper from a distant world. Another race had touched forbidden tech, and Earth would remind them too. One system at a time. The galaxy would come to call it the Silence Wave. It began as a flicker, tiny blackouts, incomes relays near the Althan expanse. Then an entire trade convoy went dark. No warning, no wreckage, just missing. 2 days later, 3 minor outposts on the edge of Council space ceased all contact. Investigation teams were dispatched, none returned. By the time the pattern was recognized, 12 star systems had gone completely dark, and in every system, at the very center of where civilization had once thrived, orbiting in place of burned planets or shattered moons, a single satellite remained. Black, silent, until it transmitted one sentence. You were warned. On the Nyari world, peace had returned, but it was hollow. Markets reopened. Children laughed again. But they did so beneath a sky they no longer trusted. Every streak of light in the atmosphere made people stop and look up. Every transmission was triple-checked, encrypted, checked again. Because everyone remembered Earth, and more than anything, they remembered that Earth remembers everything. Elion stood with Raleigh and Elder Senna on the remains of the South. Ridge, the humans had erased the Krovtech, cleansed their archives, and vanished. But the fear they left behind still echoed. We may never see them again, Elion said. Senna shook her head. That depends on us. If we stay silent, if we forget what they taught us, we'll be next, Raleigh whispered. Senna nodded. Exactly. Elsewhere in the galaxy, a scientific alliance on the planet Ventralim made a breakthrough. They had recovered fragments of ancient AI code buried beneath a lost Krov outpost, code not of Krov origin. It bore encryption that predated the fall of Earth. They didn't question where it came from. They only saw potential. They uploaded it into their planetary mainframe, and in that moment, from 10 different systems away, Earth knew. It didn't ask questions. It didn't send diplomats. It didn't send warnings. It sent the night halls of Black Fleet with no lights, no names, no leaders. Ships that did not land. They hovered. And then they ended. Within 48 hours, Ventralim was silent. Its sun dimmed unnaturally. All gravity anomalies stabilized into perfect stillness. The Council sent probes. They bounced off invisible fields. They returned no data. One drone captured a single image before its destruction, a monument left behind. A black pillar of metal, carved in pure Earth standard font. This is what forgetting costs. Back on Earth, a world untouched by outsiders. Shielded by tech that defied all known science, the old city of Geneva remained underground. Above it, overgrown trees covered ancient launch pads. Beneath it, a council of humans sat in stillness, monitoring the universe not with pride, but with focus. Commander Sarah, stood before a holographic display of all known contaminations. 3 more appeared. She sighed. We're just echoes now. They never learn. They keep poking. The dead lion with a stick. Beside her, an old man gray-bearded, hollow-eyed, whispered, "We were never dead. We just got tired." Tired of what? He turned to her. Tired of being betrayed? The final transmission Earth ever sent came 5 cycles later. It wasn't to a planet, wasn't even to a species. It was sent to the galaxy, single. Wave broadcast from 5 invisible satellites positioned across star clusters. It carried no face, no sound. Only symbols raw, ancient, human. It translated into every known tongue. It was encoded into music, color, magnetic pulse, and neural rhythm. Every species felt it in their own way. And all across the stars, translators delivered one message. Do not contact Earth. Do not take from Earth. Do not speak in Earth's name. If you do, we will come. And we will forget you for you. Then the signal ended. It never repeated it. Never echoed. But the galaxy never forgot. On the Nyari world, now grown, sat beneath the monument tree she had planted as a child. The clay stone still rested at its base, untouched. It had become a place of quiet, of stories. She told the children what had happened, not with fear, but with understanding. They weren't evil, she said. Were they heroes? One child asked. Lyra smiled sadly. No, they were a warning carved in flesh. They didn't come to save us. They came to remind the galaxy what we all forgot. What's that? The child whispered. Lyra looked to the stars. Even. The dead can burn the sky. When you wake them wrong, and high above her, invisible to every eye, a satellite floated in silence. A black eye in orbit. Watching, waiting Earth had spoken, and this time the galaxy listened.